Pew Research Center just published what might be the Internet's official death certificate, and Google wrote it with AI. The numbers are so devastating that major publishers are already preparing for a world where Google search traffic drops towards zero, and it's happening faster than anyone imagined. But here's what makes this story truly terrifying. Google isn't just changing how we search, they're systematically destroying the very websites and creators who make the internet worth searching in the first place. Welcome back to AI Handbook channel, where I expose the revolutionary changes happening in artificial intelligence every single day. By the end of this video, you will understand why the most comprehensive study ever conducted on Google's AI search features just confirmed every publisher's worst nightmare, and why the internet as we know it might not survive what comes next. On July 22nd, 2025, the Pew Research Center dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the entire digital publishing industry. After tracking 900 real users conducting over 68,000 Google searches, they discovered something that changes everything we thought we knew about the internet's future. When Google shows an AI overview, those AI-generated summaries at the top of search results, only 8% of users click on any traditional website link. Compare that to searches without AI overviews, where 15% of users click through to websites. That's not just a decline, that's a 47% reduction in web traffic caused by a single AI feature. But here's the part that should terrify every content creator, journalist, and website owner on the planet. When users do see an AI overview, only 1% actually click on the source links that cite where Google got that information from. Think about what that means. Google's AI is consuming content from thousands of websites, repackaging it into a neat summary, and then 99% of users never visit the sites that actually created that information. This isn't just about declining traffic numbers. This is about the fundamental destruction of the economic model that has powered the internet for decades. But how did we get here? And why is Google doing this to the web ecosystem that made them powerful in the first place? To understand how catastrophic this situation has become, we need to look at what experts call zero-click searches. Searches where users get their answer and leave without clicking on any website. According to similar web data, zero-click news searches have exploded from 56% in May 2024 to nearly 69% as of May 2025. That means more than 2/3 of people searching for news never actually visit a news website. They just read Google's AI summary and walk away satisfied. But here's what's truly insidious about this trend. Google isn't just accidentally reducing web traffic. They're systematically training users to never leave Google's ecosystem. The Pew Research study found that users who encounter AI overviews are more likely to end their browsing session entirely, 26%, compared to just 16% for traditional search results. Google has effectively weaponized convenience against the open web. Why click through to read a full article when Google's AI gives you a quick summary? Why support the journalists and creators who spent hours researching and writing when you can get the highlights in seconds? The numbers paint a picture of an internet in freefall. General search referral traffic to major websites dropped 6.7% year over year, according to SimilarWeb, falling from 12 billion global visits to 11.2 billion. And this is just the beginning, because Google's AI overviews are still expanding. In March 2025, AI overviews appeared in 13.14% of all Google searches, up from just 6.49% in January. That's a 102% increase in just 2 months. What happens when this reaches 50%? What happens when it reaches 100%? While Google executives make promises about supporting publishers, the real-world impact of their AI features is devastating entire media companies. Business Insider's organic search traffic dropped 55% between April 2022 and April 2025. The company's response? They cut 21% of their workforce. CEO Barbara Peng didn't mince words. The layoffs were necessary to endure extreme traffic drops outside of our control. When a major digital publisher admits they're cutting staff because of Google's decisions, you know the situation has moved beyond competitive pressure into existential crisis territory. But Business Insider isn't alone. HuffPost's organic search traffic has dropped by more than half over the past 3 years. The Washington Post is seeing similar patterns. The New York Times watched their share of organic search traffic fall from 44% to 36.5%. Even though the Times has remained relatively stable, they're preparing for worse times ahead. The most chilling warning came from Nicholas Thompson, CEO of The Atlantic. At a recent company meeting, he told his staff to prepare for a world where Google search traffic drops towards zero. Thompson explained to the Wall Street Journal that Google is shifting from being a search engine to an answer engine. Let that sink in for a moment. One of America's most prestigious media companies is telling its employees to prepare for near zero traffic from the platform that has driven web discovery for over 2 decades. And it's not just news publishers. Travel sites are down 20% year over year. E-commerce sites have dropped 9%. Finance sites are down 7%. The infection is spreading across every category of website that depends on Google search traffic to survive. But here's the question that should keep every digital entrepreneur awake at night. If Google's AI can summarize content so well that people never need to visit the original sources, what incentive do those sources have to keep creating content? Let's call this situation what it really is. The largest content theft operation in human history, disguised as innovation. Google's AI systems crawl the web, consume billions of articles, blog posts, and research papers, then repackage that information to keep users within Google's ecosystem. According to Matthew Prince, CEO of Cloudflare, the ratio of pages Google crawls versus traffic they send back has reached 18-to-1. 10 years ago, it was 2-to-1. 6 months ago, it was 6-to-1. Google is taking 9 times more content than they were just 6 months ago, while sending back proportionally less traffic. This isn't just data, it's digital colonialism. Google has built an empire by indexing everyone else's content, and now they're using AI to eliminate the need for users to ever visit the colonies that power their empire. The News Media Alliance, representing thousands of news outlets, recently accused Google of depriving publishers of both traffic and ad revenue. Alliance President Danielle Coffey didn't hold back. Links were the last redeeming quality of search that gave publishers traffic and revenue. Now Google just takes content by force and uses it with no return, the definition of theft. But Google's response reveals how little they care about this criticism. CEO Sundar Pichai maintains that Google sends more traffic to websites than anyone else. When pressed about publishers' concerns, he simply stated that Google prioritizes web traffic more than other tech companies. That's like a thief saying they're generous because they leave some money in the wallet they're stealing. The fundamental problem isn't that Google sends no traffic, it's that they're systematically reducing their dependence on external websites while increasing their extraction of those websites' content. And here's the most disturbing part. Google search chief Liz Reed testified that allowing publishers to opt out of AI features would add enormous complexity. Translation? We're not giving you a choice about whether we use your content to train systems that will replace you. Faced with an existential threat, some publishers are fighting back, but their options are limited and desperate. The New York Times has signed licensing deals with both Amazon and OpenAI, essentially paying protection money to the companies that are destroying their traditional business model. Several other major publishers, The Atlantic, The Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, have signed similar deals with AI companies. But here's the problem with this approach. It only works if you're big enough and prestigious enough to command licensing fees. What about the thousands of smaller publishers, independent journalists, and niche websites that make the internet diverse and interesting? They're being eliminated, not through direct competition, but through systematic starvation. Their content gets consumed by Google's AI, their audience gets intercepted by AI overviews, and their revenue streams dry up. They don't get licensing deals, they just disappear. Meanwhile, Google is preparing for the next phase of content extraction. They're rolling out AI summaries in Google Discover, the newsfeed inside their mobile app. Instead of seeing headlines from actual publishers, users now see AI-generated summaries with tiny publisher logos in the corner. It's like being credited for a quote in a book that nobody needs to buy. Some AI companies are trying different approaches. Perplexity promises to share advertising revenue with publishers when their content appears in AI responses, but the economics don't work. The revenue sharing is tiny compared to what publishers lose when users never visit their websites. Google has also launched something called OfferWall, a tool that lets publishers try different monetization options like micropayments and surveys. But this feels like offering a Band-Aid to someone who's bleeding out. The fundamental problem isn't that publishers need new revenue streams, it's that Google is systematically destroying their primary revenue stream while offering inadequate alternatives. But what happens when this system reaches its logical conclusion? What happens when AI becomes so good at summarizing content that nobody creates new content anymore?
Here's the paradox that Google doesn't want to acknowledge. Their AI systems are only as good as the content they're trained on. If publishers stop creating content because they can't make money from it, what will Google's AI have to summarize? We're already seeing the early signs of this problem. The most frequently cited sources in Google's AI overviews are Wikipedia, YouTube, and Reddit. These platforms work differently from traditional publishers. Wikipedia is volunteer-driven, YouTube has its own monetization system, and Reddit is community-generated. But none of these platforms can replace the investigative journalism, expert analysis, and original research that traditional publishers provide. What happens to scientific research when science journals can't afford to pay editors? What happens to local news when community newspapers shut down because Google's AI answers basic questions about city council meetings? What happens to specialized knowledge when niche websites disappear because their expertise gets packaged into AI summaries that nobody clicks through to verify? Google's executives seem to believe that AI will somehow generate infinite value without destroying the content ecosystem it depends on. But that's like believing you can have a forest without trees or an ocean without fish. The technology industry has a long history of disrupting industries without thinking through the consequences. Uber disrupted taxis without considering the social safety net that taxi medallions provided. Facebook disrupted news media without considering the role of professional journalism in democracy. Now Google is disrupting the entire web ecosystem without considering what happens when content creators can no longer afford to create content. And unlike previous disruptions, this one might be irreversible. Once users are trained to expect instant AI answers instead of exploring websites, once publishers have been driven out of business, once the economic model of the web has collapsed, how do you rebuild it? The data from Pew Research isn't just a research study, it's a preview of the internet's future. A future where Google's AI intercepts your questions, repackages everyone else's work, and keeps you locked in their ecosystem while the creators who made that information possible slowly starve to death. We're witnessing the transformation of the internet from a diverse ecosystem of interconnected websites into a centralized information monopoly controlled by a single company. Google isn't just changing how we search, they're fundamentally altering the economics of human knowledge sharing. The Atlantic CEO was right to tell his staff to prepare for near-zero Google traffic. Business Insider was right to cut staff in response to traffic drops they can't control. Because this isn't a temporary adjustment period, This is the new reality. Google has discovered that they can provide better user experiences by consuming everyone else's content rather than directing users to it. And why wouldn't they? Every click that stays within Google's ecosystem is a click they can monetize. Every click that leaves their platform is potential revenue walking out the door. The internet was built on the promise of connecting human knowledge and creativity, but we're rapidly approaching a world where that knowledge and creativity flows in only one direction, toward Google's AI systems, while the humans who create it are systematically excluded from the value chain. The Pew Research study gives us the numbers, but the story is bigger than statistics. This is about whether the internet remains a place where independent voices can build audiences, where creators can make a living from their work, and where human curiosity can explore beyond the boundaries of what a single company's AI thinks is worth knowing. The death certificate has been written. The question isn't whether the old internet is dying. The question is whether anything worth saving will rise from its ashes, or whether we'll just accept the world where Google's AI is the beginning and end of every question we dare to ask.